tiesioginės transliacijos žiūrovai,
Good evening,
stebintys
everyone
mus
watching
socialinių
our
tinklų,
today's
Facebook ir YouTube
interview
kanaluose.
online
Aš
on
esu
YouTube,
Vigailė
Facebook.
Žutautaitė, Vilniaus universiteto
My name is
studentų
Vigailė
grupės
Žutautaite,
alumnė, taip pat ir
Vilnius University
University
Student Representation
santykių
alumni,
politikos mokslų
also Vilnius University International
Pirmiausia,
Studies
norėčiau
Institute
padėkoti studentų atstovybei už suteiktą
student,
galimybę
a
prisidėti
master
prie šio
student.
renginio ir
And I'm happy I'm able to participate in this event. We are joined by more and more participants every time. I'm happy about this fact. I would like to congratulate each and every one of you. Apologies. There were some certain technical problems. I wanted to once again congratulate everyone joining us this evening. Despite the fact that we still need to protect each other and we can't meet face to face, the Vilnius University student representation's traditions remain the same. Before the conference, the convention, annual convention, which happens this week, I'm interviewing the candidate to the chairman of WUSA organization, Neda Žutautaite. She presented the documents for the candidacy of chairman, and she was the sole candidate. A few brief technical aspects I want to mention before we start. We're planning to have this interview for 1 hour, approximately. Another important aspect, each and every one of you can ask questions to the candidate on our social networks. If I will see that the questions repeat themselves or they're similar, I will try to make one to the candidate. It would be good if you made one question, not 5 completely different questions with one comment. I would also like to highlight and remind all of you that we are on a public space. Therefore, any comments that would be of discriminatory nature or inappropriate, these type of comments won't be tolerated. I would like to wish each and every one of you to be politically correct, to be friendly, and enjoy this discussion. Another important aspect is that this interview is also interpreted into English. You can ask questions both in Lithuanian and in English. And the candidate will reply in Lithuanian, but you will hear the English version. So very briefly, the different parts of our conversation. First of all, she will present herself. Maybe I will interrupt her at times to ask some additional questions throughout her introductory remarks. Second part of our conversation will be specific questions I have for the candidate, because I have read the motivational letter and curriculum, guidelines and ideas. I'm sure you did so too. But I will use this platform and opportunity to ask any questions I have. I will use this opportunity. And the third part of our interview, the most important one, I would say, the final and the most important part is the questions you have for the candidate. So this is the structure we will follow this evening. I've said enough. It's not about me, actually. I'm just the moderator. The most important person is Neda. I give her the floor to give some introductory remarks. 15 minutes more or less.
Ačiū labai, Vigailė.
Thank you,
Pirmiausia, už tokią gražią
Vigailė,
pradžią ir
for
įžangą.
such
Labai
a
tikiuosi, kad su šiuo
great
20
presentation.
savaitėm ir keliausim tiek per mūsų
And I'm really looking forward for a very successful and positive discussion today.
Esu Neda Žutautaite,
My
studijuoju
name is
Vilniaus universitete,
Neda Žutautaite. I study in Kaunas Faculty, Economics and Management. I'm finishing the third year currently. I could say as a joke that I don't have enough of a challenge. I need more sleepless nights. That is why I'm applying for this position. About myself, I was part of various political activities from school. I was member of the school council. I was also member of the Lithuania's school students union. I was also in the national district council of youth. Then I started studying in the university, and from the very first year, I joined the students' representation. In the second year, I became the process coordinator, and I became more involved as student representative in my second year. I became students representative in Academic Ethics Commission and Dispute Resolution Commission. I also became representative in Study Program Committee of Economics and Management. I was also member of Faculty Board. This year, as of spring of this year, I became chairman of student representation of Kaunas Faculty. I am also member of various governing bodies of student representation and Vilnius University. I will not talk more about that, but I would like to mention about my experience more. I have experience in student representation, in managing problems that students have, and I also want to ensure that the students are enabled to tackle and address the problems themselves. I worked with various students with different needs, different problems, different situations. Sometimes students are not heard properly, so I try to do my best to tackle that. And recently I became chairwoman of Kaunas Faculty. I want to talk in depth about my motivational letter because I'm sure that all of you have read it. I would like to talk more about strategic areas and directions which I see for student representation. There are three main directions. First main area is student quality and inclusion of students. Students should be more involved in various study program activities and more. Another dimension is social, to ensure that we develop social dimension throughout the studies. Before the entering university, we want to ensure that every person has equal opportunity to participate in higher university education. And the third area is the strengthening of organization. We need strong organization to ensure we are able to make a difference. We need to ensure that we train our representatives, improve our processes. Also, today I see that our organization could move forward, could improve our work, and I already think that we're on that path, together with all the other members of student representation. And I'm sure that we can create perfect conditions for each student to enable him or her. Thank you, Neda. Okay, so you presented your motivation, ideas. I wanted to ask something more. In your presentation and in your documentation which you submitted, you mentioned three main areas, guidelines, which you are going to work on. I would like you to talk more on that. I think that this kind of a political program is very important. And the first guideline, the first area which you're going to work on is inclusion of students and quality. So please present the main ideas of this topic. As of quality of studies, when we talk about studies in general in a university, of course, there is no doubt that studies need to be of high quality. And I believe this is a continuous process. We need to continuously improve the quality of studies. We need to take into account each and every student. As for student participation, everything that I've written down are extremely important. We need to ensure that students have autonomy to choose what they want to study, that they are able to form their path, the subjects they choose. Vilnius University, in its strategic plan, has already set guidelines to free up certain credits, so the students will be free to pick what they want to pursue. This would entail additional services for students, such as academic and career consultation for each student. Taking into account the current situation, we are studying remotely. I think that we could gain experience from this, and we can apply this type of learning in the future. In the future, maybe we could use blended or hybrid learning to ensure that every student is able to participate to his or her best abilities and convenience. What's also important is scientific activities and research, as well as international aspects of studies. We want to ensure that all students participate in scientific research. We also should ensure that students have initiatives, have ideas, share them, and implement them. I want to make sure that classes is not the only thing that students do. We want to ensure that students are more included into the community activities, in various activities after classes. Thank you. In the past, we used to say that student representation needs to function until it's no longer needed. When students become 100% independent, there's no need for student representation. When student can manage his or her studies, then there is no more need to help them. Okay, so second dimension. Social dimension in higher education. Not everybody knows what this means, actually. Maybe some have heard this concept, for some it may be a new concept. Why did you include this dimension, this definition? Why do you think it's important, and why did you name it as a separate point that you think is very important?
Well, the social dimension in higher education and higher education in general, I think that this is a very important idea because educated people are very useful for the whole society, so we have to keep that in mind. Also, every person who has enough capabilities to study, who can study, should be able to study, should have equal opportunity despite his social or economical position. And the person should have the opportunity to achieve higher education diplomas. So we have to include people, have to take notice of people who maybe were born or grew up in less favorable conditions.
Ne tokiose gerose sąlygose. Tai čia yra labai stiprus turbūt
This is a
teisingumo
very important
aspektas.
matter of justice,
Mes
in my
labai
opinion,
dažnai šiuo metu užsisukam tokiame rate, kai
because I
žmonės
think that lately
gyvenantys prastesnėje
we
ekonominėje
see
padėtyje, turi žemesnį
this
išsilavinimą,
sort of vicious circle that a person is growing up in a less favorable conditions, then he gets worse education and then stays in the less favorable conditions. So I think that higher education should help people to leave this vicious circle. Thus, we have to help the groups in question to actually leave this vicious circle. We have to do more in this area. Lithuania has very big difference between the schools in the rural areas and schools in the cities. We have huge differences, and we have to evaluate the situation and do more. We have to include more. We have to find ways to address this issue. We have to find ways to ensure that even people who are living in less favorable conditions would have equal opportunities that would only depend on their capabilities, and the opportunity should not depend on anything else. The opportunity to get higher education. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, that's great. Great to hear that you and the organization also keeps in mind the social aspect, the social responsibility, the need to help each other, if we can also include this. Now, the third area, strengthening of the organization. I guess that's one of the goals that is a mandatory goal for any chairperson, former or future. I'm sure that even the former ones would still repeat that they had similar ideas in their guidelines. But I would like to ask you to tell us, what do you see here? What's included in this guideline? What would you do differently? Please share.
Mes dažnai turbūt klausim, kas bus kitaip, kas bus
Well, everyone, I guess, asks all the time, what will be different, what will be new when we're faced with these new things. I think that sometimes the new things are simply the well-forgotten old things. I think it's quite natural that for people to keep doing the same things. For example, let's take competence building. I included that in our guidelines, and I included that in our aims, but I don't think that I would surprise anyone with this. But then I wanted to include that because I think it's important. The student representation is already one of the organizations that learns a lot in Lithuania. What I want to ensure is that the time and effort and resources that are devoted to learning process, to competence building, should create the largest possible value added. We quite often discuss the same ideas, the things, and we mostly know the problems. The question remains, how shall we address these things? And there are no easy answers to these questions. There are no perfect ways to do things. If we had perfect answers, we wouldn't have to talk about that anymore. That's also uh, is important for the other guidelines. So the organization is very big. We have many people there. So we have to try to create a structure, a culture, and traditions that would help us find the best ways to include all we want to implement all we want to implement. We have to find the best ways to develop the competences and to ensure the implementation of the aims of the organization. Right. So to sum up, I guess we can tell all the former chairpersons that what they did, all their dreams, all their structures, all their works, will not be just demolished, and Neda will still include something new, but will not destroy what's being created beforehand. So I think that chairmen of the past are calm now. Well, we're getting closer to the end of the first part of our discussion. So, Neda, 2 minutes for you to sum up your guidelines and please tell us what should the delegates know. They will come on Saturday to vote. What should they keep in mind as they decide what to do with their vote? Yes, well, the questions with the time limit are the most difficult. Well, let's tackle it head on. Three main areas: study qualities and inclusion of students. We need to ensure that students be autonomous in their decisions, what they study. We need to give more aid for students, to encourage students to be more active in international activities and also in research. We also want to learn from the pandemics. Maybe we need to update the study programs, the implementation of the study programs in the university. Next, the social dimension, equal opportunities for all to study, to get higher education, to get all the services needed. And then there's strengthening of the organization, which is a very important area of topics for me. So the competence building for the members, better inclusion of the members in the organization, and better efficiency of the organization. These are the most important issues for me, and I hope that the delegates will remember them. Well, okay, I see 2 minutes. You didn't take more time. Okay, we can finish the first part, and then let's move to the second part. I would just like to remind our viewers that you can also ask your questions on social media, Facebook and then YouTube. And I'd like to remind everyone that we are in a public space. Please, let's be respectful and let's stay politically correct. The second part of our discussion, I have a few questions for you because I'm also a student. And Neda, you might become the representative of me and every other student. So I have a few questions for you. I've read your ideas that you shared publicly. So I have 3 questions for 3 levels. First of all, the national level, then the Vilnius University level, and then the level of the organization. So the first question, the national level. In 2020, in autumn, we have elected a new parliament and we now have a new government. They started working and they managed to implement some of their ideas already. They promised something maybe and maybe didn't follow up with some of the promises. I'd like to hear your comment. Could you very specifically mention one of the activities, what the parliament and the government managed to implement already? And in addition to that, what role do you see in cooperating with the government in achieving their aims for the higher education? Well, your first question is really, really big one. So, what was achieved? I think that mostly they achieved creating new goals and aims and creating new working groups and starting working towards the goals. So we'll be able to see the results a bit later, I think. But given for the current reforms, we have the national agreement regarding higher education. Then there was the action plan for the higher education. There were some action plans being prepared. Now, as for the role for the students in all this, well, I believe that students, of course, are one of the interested parties in the discussions on the higher education. So, because of that, students should be very active in discussing all the proposals and also including the students' views. Students should also provide their own ideas. They should provide these ideas how to reach the aims. The student representation is active on the national level, so we should be proactive in this area. Now, a good example could be the social area, the social dimension. There is a action plan to improve the social area of higher education in Lithuania. And this plan is included in the action plan of what working program of the government. I believe that hadn't WUSA been so active in with the creating ideas, with promoting the ideas, I think that the plan would be different. So I think we did the part, but we also need to do that in the future. We have to prepare our work plan, plan for activities, create a plan for us, and that will be a big work. And I also included that in my guidelines. So our inclusion and our participation is very important here. It's necessary. The students should be included in solving national problems, not because there's just a tradition to do that, but because only the students can give the students perspective on certain proposals, and only the students can give quality feedback on certain issues. So that's why students inclusion is important. Right. So if I understood you well, there was a promise that there would be a cooperation. Okay, I think I heard a promise in this area. Right. Let's move on. Let's go down one level, the university. Now, the everyday life of every student now, the everyday life of the students is affected by the state, by the conditions in the country, in the world. And because of that, we studied mostly remotely in the year. We had to do that. We had to protect each other. We had to protect ourselves. What would be the priorities for this academic year before the next one? What would be the priorities for WUSA, for the student representation? And should we aim at ensuring that students come back to the classrooms? If yes, under what conditions? And maybe not. How would you see the situation? How should we start the studies on the 1st of September? And I would like to remind you that you have more than 2 minutes, so don't worry, you have plenty of time. You can answer fully. Please go ahead. Thank you. Okay, I understood your remark. I should speak slowly. Right, so should we return the students to classrooms, and what can we do in this area? Well, I think that even though everyone wants to have the live contact, everyone wants to get back to the universities, everyone misses that, but I think that still the first priority is safety. For the students and the other members of the community, we have to protect our health and our lives. So coming back to classrooms should only become a possibility only when we can do that safely. I can't guess now when and how can we do that and what measures would be necessary to do that. I think that it would be quite irresponsible from my part to start guessing about this. In the university, we have the scientists, we have the researchers. They are the best in the area. They are consulting the government on all these issues. So I think we should hear their voice. My main priority would be to, first of all, ensure safety and also to provide enough aid. we should provide enough study counseling and also psychological counseling. Of course, when we do come back to classrooms, we'll need to get used to the community again because we spend so much time away. So we have to find a way to reintegrate ourselves back in. On the other hand, if we don't return to the classrooms quickly, well, we have to adapt to that. We can't just wait until we get back. We have to take action already. These are the important issues, and I think that psychological counseling is very important in this context. But then I don't see a possibility to come back without the ensuring safety.
Of course, definitely, we can have many dreams, many wishes, but we have to take into the account the safety measure. We can, of course, think that the student representation with the new chairwoman will be able to assist the university administration in terms of preparation of plans on safe return and gradual return to the classrooms. Okay, we've addressed the second area, and now the third, organizational area. This is the last question I will ask, and then we will go to the questions from the audience, from the viewers. The third question, in your opinion, what new can you bring to the organization, to the students' representation, in case you win? You are the voice of us, the students. I'm sure, as you've mentioned, you won't just destroy or change completely everything that has been done so far yet. I'm sure you have new ideas. We can see that from your guidelines action plan, but could you comment on your own? As you've mentioned, my priority is not a complete overhaul of the system. I want to do something that has never been done before. But of course, I see certain areas which could be addressed, improved in comparison to the previous year or previous few years. To ensure effective student representation, one important aspect is specific competences building. We need to ensure we include the resources we already have, but and best practices also from other organizations. We can also include best practices from international organizations, international experience. Another aspect is improvement of communication between different units of SR, student representation. We need to ensure we share the information to the best of our abilities to ensure this is done properly. The board, the parliament, all those organizational parts need to ensure that once they elect their heads, their leaders, we need to discuss with those bodies. But of course, we need to reach an agreement. Discussions are not enough. Of course, effectiveness is also important when we discuss the organizational level. The parliament, its functioning manner needs to be included. We need to also include the central student representation. So I do have ideas. I believe there is area for improvement, certain areas that could be improved. Thank you so much, Neda. We finished the second part, and now we will start the third part, which is the questions and comments from those of you watching the broadcast. I will read those questions, and apologies in case I mispronounce your name. I'm also a bit nervous, so please don't think I did it on purpose. So I will start with the questions, and then Neda will answer them one by one. We have quite a few. This is a good thing. I can see that you're active, you're interested, you want to partake in the discussion. But we can also say that students are indeed interested in what is currently happening. They want to express their opinion. They are happy that they can participate. Okay, let's go to the questions now. Augusta asks, hi Neda, you talk about higher student inclusion. What, in your opinion, should be the student movement or students' actions? How should it look like? Because often various matters that are important to students are only raised by representation, not by the students themselves. So what type of student movement needs to happen? How students need to work with the representation and so on. Thank you for your question, first of all. My first idea would be that, first of all, student representation members are students themselves. So there is no direct division between those people. We shouldn't divide them. What I think we should do is create a more open environment. We need to create more inclusion opportunities for students. Each student should feel that he or she can propose their ideas, initiatives, share their problems maybe. They should be not afraid and willing to come to student representation. But of course, if they want, they can go to the administration, to various units, and raise their questions themselves. Each student needs to be equal member of the community and has to have the right to be heard. So the question is the matter of openness. We as an organization, what we can do is to encourage further the students to prove that we're open to other students and their ideas, to prove that we're not an closed organization, and that we're willing to hear what non-members have to offer. I'm sure that student representation members, of course, discuss with students, and then they bring the ideas and questions which they hear to the office. From what I've heard, openness won't be only something written on paper, it will be an actual thing that will happen. The next question, Ieva Šiaudytytė. Hi Neda, you study in Kaunas. Everybody knows that you study in Kaunas, right? So the problem is that student representation office is in Vilnius. How will you work with this? How studying in Kaunas and working in Vilnius? Thank you for your question. I thought about it in advance. In the last semester, I had an individual study plan, and I changed my study grid, my study program, to ensure that for the upcoming semester, I will have my final thesis and papers I have to write. So according to my schedule, there will be one day I will have to be present in Kaunas, in case, of course, the classes will be live. But in case in autumn the classes will still be happening online, then there will be no problem for me to participate in the classes from Vilnius. Otherwise, of course, I may need to move. So as I understand, you've thought about this location question already. I hope you don't mind, but I will connect two questions. Aiste's question about values. So, core values: responsibility, improvement of activities, openness, and quality. Unity as well. All these values, how do you think these values are represented in the current activities of the organization? Okay, maybe I didn't read all the values, apologies, but in terms of values, I believe, of course, we could discuss each value in detail. Improvement. I believe that we can see improvements in all of our activities. Trainings, we have competence building. The organization itself is improving constantly. The organization wants to participate in various training to gain new experiences and new knowledge. The organization reacts to the recent events, and the organization wants to ensure it uses all the different opportunities that are available. We need to ensure that certain lessons learned from the pandemic are applied in our future activities. As for quality of our activities, again, we could relate quality with competence building. We need to ensure that representation is of quality, that it brings actual change and benefits to students. As mentioned, this is very much related to competence building. What's more, what I see is needed is self-reflection, self-assessment to ensure that we continuously assess what we're doing and that we do this well. As for responsibility, I'm not sure how to start. Each person, each member of the organization, each unit has to take responsibility for the words we say, for the students we represent, and we need to ensure that we are well organized, that we are responsible, that our activities are of quality. Once again, it's all interrelated. As for openness, I believe we can see various activities. For example, our communication needs to be open with students. We publish all our meeting minutes, everything that we discuss in our meetings. Open environment needs to be created so that each student could come to our organization and say what's on their mind, share their problems at any time. As for unity, if we won't follow, as we as organization won't follow this value, this guideline, then we won't achieve anything. We have to follow, each and every one of us, the same direction. This helps us stay together as an organization to perform our activities, to ensure we're responsible and improve continuously. Good. So we discussed the values. Now, Rita Žilinskaite. Hi, Neda. The units of student representation, do they need to become more same, more similar, or should they, each of them, maintain their own uniqueness? So should they be more united or more different?
I think we have to understand that, well, I believe that the question is about representations, the student representations in the units, right? And not the units themselves. That's my understanding of the question. Well, yeah, I guess we can understand this question this way. Okay. So if we discuss the organization, we can discuss what can come from unity and from other values that we just discussed. And of course, we have to march in one direction, be united in all units. We shouldn't have a situation where one unit of the organization acts in one way and the other unit acts in the other way. So the direction should be the same for everyone. But then we have to understand that we all are a bit different. Not only on the level of the units, we as people are very different. Even the same units, you can see the different people. So I'm from the Kaunas unit, and I know that the other units also have their own specificities. They have their own study programs that are different. Now, our unit in Kaunas is a very mixed with very different programs. So we're not uniform even on the unit level. We have to accept this. I also think that all the specificities can also be used as something that unites us. We can share this and benefit from that. So I wouldn't want to make a big difference between these two aspects. I think that we need to make them go together well. Thank you. The next question. Neda, what do you think? Should the organization be more directed to reaching actual results, or maybe to being a space for self-actualization for the members and quality building for the members? So actions or people building? Question by Thomas Bedulski. Oh, wow, I don't see a way of actually differentiating between those two aspects. We can't believe that we will achieve anything, that will carry out any works if people don't want to do that. And we can't have goals that are suitable for only one person who would, and that the others would then put away their own goals of self-building. I think that when we are talking about the goals for the unit or for the organization, we're actually including the capacity building, the competence building, the growth for the people, because there's no other way of doing this. We can't acquire the competences without actually carrying out actions. So we have to look broader, and we have to find ways for everyone to learn the competences they want and to be active in the activities they want to. But then, of course, we have to achieve result. We can't have just a simulation of the activities. We need actual results. We need actual changes. And then in seeing the changes, we can see what we managed to achieve. Right, so you see that we'll be able to separate out the different issues, and we'll define all the concepts. Let's move on now to the issues related to the organization. Goda Žvirblytė is asking a question. Hi, Neda. What do you think? Is the emotional situation in the organization good? Thank you, Goda, for the question. I think that in the current situation, it's difficult to evaluate that. We have now pandemics, and well, even studies show that this affects the study outcomes and the emotional climate. So of course that affected our organization. But then of course I wouldn't want to say that everything is bad in the organization. No, it's not the case. I think that we as an organization managed to still carry out certain activities, to still be active in the student movement, to ensure inclusion and participation of the members. So I believe that all of that stimulated certain positive changes in the emotional climate. Of course, the pandemic situation affected all this. I think that had the year been different, would have a better emotional climate now. It really depended a lot on the external situation, on the situation in the country and the world. And of course, we can't be shielded from that. Thank you, Neda. Let's move on. Now the next question will be very easy from. We are from Kaunas, and there were many complaints that the units in Vilnius are very well integrated. It's very simple for them. And then there are certain other comments regarding the Kaunas faculty. So it's a very, very small question. Rugile Andrievskite raised the question. Hello, Neda. Everyone wants to say hello to you. So, hello, Neda. How do you see the further work with the student representation of the Šiauliai Academy? How can we integrate it? Hello, Rugile. Well, as for the Šiauliai Academy student representation, I guess it's a broader question with all remote units. I think that it's very important for the organization to accept this, to include everyone. I think that the new remote possibilities we got actually helped us a lot. So maybe this was one of the positive outcomes of the pandemics. I think it actually facilitated certain processes, and it helped the Kaunas and Šiauliai units to be closer to the Vilnius units and the representation in Vilnius. The student representation in Šiauliai is a new one, and I know that students received a lot of help from the fund for the students, and there was cooperation in the parliament with the president, the bureau. So I do hope that the team in Šiauliai felt all that support. Well, I didn't have the chance to speak with Paulius in depth all about these questions. But I think that I shouldn't be just as a president, the person who just makes a decision how to integrate the persons from Šiauliai. I think we should have a dialogue with Šiauliai Academy and find look for ways how to include them better. We should find the ways where maybe they themselves think that there are some maybe lacking inclusion and what can be improved. So we could improve that and then include them fully in all the other activities of all the units and ensure them equal participation. Of course, we can use the remote participation methods we have now. Thank you. Right. I think that the current situation and the virtual participation in everything actually helped us a lot and aided us in learning a lot. Let's move on. The next question by Karina. I will reframe just a little bit your question, Karina, if you don't mind. And I'm very happy that people are raising all these questions and we can continue to discuss. So Karina is raising a question. Hello, Neda. Maybe you have ideas or thoughts on how we can ensure honesty, academic honesty during the exams in all of the units. And there was another question that I would like to add. What about honesty in remote learning? So this is important in live learning in classrooms, and there's the issues of honesty in these areas, but then there's also honesty in remote learning. Can you cover all these aspects? Right. Honesty. Well, it was very important during the during the classroom studies, but it's also very important during the remote studies. I think it even raised more issues during the remote. remote studies because we had fewer opportunities to actually just watch each other during the tests. What we have to do more is we can use our program sąžiningai, honestly. This program was mainly aimed at watching the tests, but then we should probably look for other ways of doing this. I do hope that during the summer we'll be able to find the solutions for the upcoming period. I hope that we'll be able to develop further the problems in academic integrity area. I think that additional tools to ensure academic integrity is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And I know that the medical faculty has special software that allows to monitor the tests. But then we have to understand that we won't have a 100% compliance rate. We won't have tools that ensure 100% compliance rate, and we can't avoid some students being dishonest. But we can find ways of solving this problem. As I mentioned, there was this program sąžiningai, honestly, but then we have to discuss in general academic integrity and honesty here. Why is this important? Why should everyone uphold the values here? I think that we shouldn't just aim at having one tool that removes these problems, but we have to look at the roots. We have to discuss at the roots why people decide to cheat. Another thing that could be helpful, in my opinion, and that was used in my unit. Maybe the teachers are listening to the lecturers are listening to this, so they will know about what I'm talking about. So we have special forms for tests. There are many ways of implement this, and we have to keep in mind that sometimes the lecturers actually just expect that the student will memorize a lot of data, specific figures, but then our study program should demand different competences, various competences, and we shouldn't only expect learning by heart from the students. So we should look for different forms of evaluating the students and evaluating the competences. Now, in my own experience, I saw very good examples, good practice in our unit. The lecturers adapted testing in such a way that actually it was very interesting for me to take the tests. It was fun to take the tests. So I think that this is the main issue. And if there are other certain courses where it's difficult to find different forms of evaluation, and maybe there are certain evaluations that you have to memorize something, well, then maybe we should ensure that the memorization doesn't give you a 100% of your grade. That could probably help the problems and the problems with the academic integrity and in cheating.
So maybe we could summarize, as people say, is you can't change the situation, change the attitude. Maybe we could offer alternatives for tests. We have good examples. Let's just wait and change those practices, and let's make sure everyone is being honest. Camille asks, what position Vilnius University Student Representation Office needs to take in terms of dormitories? Should you aim to reduce the price or to maintain the price and ensure that there is faster and speedier renovation of dormitories? Me, myself, I'm from Kaunas. We don't have dormitories. So for me, this question is a bit hard, but of course, thank you. But in general, talking about the current situation, we need to ensure that the prices stay the same. As for the pandemic situation, students' financial situation hasn't improved, so we need to take this into account. We need to be understandable. Of course, our dormitory prices are the lowest in Vilnius city. We need to take this into account as well. But of course, from the pandemic perspective, we should take our lessons from it. I know that there were solutions sought currently. Maybe something more could have been done. There's always more that could be done. But what we could do is, first of all, from the university's perspective, we shouldn't expect the university to compensate or reduce the prices. There were attempts to do so. Also, support to students during the pandemics. We could discuss, maybe the state should have aided the students, include companies, because we know that the state helped companies which were struggling. At the same time, state could help students who are struggling. There are different ways and forms to provide this support. As the prices did go up, but we need to ensure that they don't continue to rise further. But of course, we need to take into account how many students live in the dormitory, and we need to assess and analyze all the statistics. And of course, without this data, I cannot provide you a more detailed response, because I don't have here cost and expenses analysis. Justinas Kulis. Neda, in your opinion, how could we ensure a more effective internal management of organization? What is the future of the units in the faculties, in your opinion? A more effective management of units. He didn't mention units, I interpreted it for you, but then, of course, the question by Justinas was about the future of the units. I think that we could look from different perspectives. Sometimes certain details create this ineffectiveness. Small processes. We don't need big changes. We need to assess the processes that we currently have. We need to know and see what resources are needed, what benefits those processes bring, and then analyze the costs and expenses. We need to ensure that we are able to measure what's the most important to us, how much resources we have, and we need to ensure that required resources are there. As for the future of the units, I would probably need to know more what exactly Justinas wanted to know by asking this question. But I believe at the units level and at the organizational level, we need to ensure that there is effectiveness, that there is assessment of processes, what benefits those processes bring to the students, the organization itself. And also we need to just calculate the resources which are required. If I understood correctly, the studies which you are currently doing will be used for cost expenses analysis and other things related to the management of organization. Okay, next question. Danielis Shamatovich. Hi, Neda. I'm happy to hear that you will really focus on the strengthening of the organization. What relation you want to keep with all the members of SI? This is quite a broad question. Probably I would say that between members of the organization and different units, there should be communication, there should be relations, students need to be included. Of course, there should be respect, first of all, between all those members. We need to be able to respect each other, to talk to each other, to communicate to each other. We shouldn't be afraid to express our needs, our thoughts and ideas. And we also should be able to accept what we hear from others. We should be able to hear, not only hear, but also listen and try to find best solutions, best ideas, which ideas are best to be implemented, what are the best solutions for certain situations. So this could be applied in general for the members of the organization. But as this question was more about my relation, from my perspective, I would apply the same to myself. I would follow the mentioned principles myself. I will follow the values, vision of the organization as well. What I've heard from you is that we all need to be bold. We should be able to communicate with each other. We shouldn't be afraid to express our ideas, thoughts. And as the organization and its members, they should be brave. And what I've heard from you, they will be listened to and heard. Once again, these questions, of course, are very different because we have questions from members and students. And now we have a question from alumni. Dear Neda, from your guidelines, I see that you've mentioned many things you want to change, but we have discussed about these changes for years and years without any change. This includes changing the model of parliament's work, also creation and more activity of student clubs, and also freeing of credits. But nothing has been done so far. So how your term will be different, how you will ensure that these questions that haven't been addressed will be addressed. P.S. Best wishes to both of you. Thank you, Julia, for your question and for your wishes. First of all, I think that these matters are very broad, very big questions that need to be addressed. I don't think that you can resolve those matters in 1 month, not even in 1 year. Naturally, we speak about those matters for quite a long time, and we are trying to implement certain changes in these areas. I think it's important that when a new chairperson comes, he or she suggests ideas, but as well, that person needs to assess what has been done so far, also see any mistakes that have been done to ensure that those mistakes are avoided in the future. Also, the new person needs to ensure that the processes become more effective and the best practices are used. Certain units, those best practices work in one unit, but maybe they don't work in another unit. In some cases, we can look for help and examples in other organizations, maybe other organizations within the national borders, or maybe we could get those best practices from international organizations. We also need to take into account the opinion of the alumni, as they have things to share. And as you've mentioned about the freeing up of credits so that the students would be able to choose more freely what they study, as the organization, we can't do all these changes on our own. There's many interested parties, and we're not the decision makers. This needs to be taken into account too. This is sometimes the barrier that prevents us from changing some problems or from implementing some ideas. This needs to be taken into account. We need to apply best practices. And of course, we need to understand as well that not everything can be done in 1 year's time. We can sometimes build bases for change, and then this will be the first step for future actual change when it happens. That would be my answer to your question. I would like to add and encourage that the organization wouldn't forget that the alumni are out there. There are so many great people with experience who are prepared and ready to help and share their knowledge, and sometimes just support you. We can do so as well. Hi, Neda. As a student, you're not part of VUSA, and well, you are a member, apologies, of VUSA, and you won't be able to see from students' perspective.
Čia pirmiausia, man norėtųsi išgirsti ir iš šono dar idėjų, tai jeigu jų yra ir iš kitos pusės labai gera būtų.
Okay, so as the question was from not a member from VUSA, how to ensure the organization's visibility. When I started in Kaunas faculty, I understood that effective communication is important, of course. But sometimes we, as the organization, we really try and do our best to implement something, to achieve something. And once we do, we're very happy about it, but then sometimes we don't communicate about it efficiently enough. So this is what needs to be done. We need to ensure that communication happens. We communicate about what's been done, what's been implemented. The students need to be aware. We should be more visible for the students. This event was publicized, the information did reach you. So I see that we're on the wrong path, right path. What we want as the organization, we need to ensure we communicate our ideas, our goals. But of course, being known is not the goal on its own. We have our goals, our objectives. We need to address certain problems. We need to implement ideas. We need to ensure that each student has better conditions. Throughout the last year, we really improved the visibility question. I still think, of course, that we can improve further and we can show more what we are doing and what we want to do.
Well, I would like to state that when the delegates vote and once they vote for the president, and if Neda gets elected, so Neda will have the open doors for everyone. Well, I guess maybe not the open doors because of the pandemics, but at least open email where everyone can support their, where anyone can supply their ideas. I remember my own times as a chairperson, and I see that we're really running behind schedule. We only had an hour for the discussion, and that's over already. So I'd like to put a limit at 5 more questions, and then we'll have to finish. Of course, you will be able to ask the questions not only here, but also on Saturday, or maybe personally do that. So can we agree that we will answer 5 more questions and that's it? Okay. Let's move on. Victoria Milko has a question. Hello, Neda. You talked about how all the students should be treated equally. Why do you put so much emphasis on this? Did you came across situations where you felt discrimination or felt being treated unequally in the sense of being from another city in our university? Thank you. Well, that's a very personal question. Thank you, Victoria. Well, I haven't been in many situations like that. So I can't really say that I have lots of personal experience that drives me and encourages and makes me discuss this. So, but then I might be just lucky. Given these issues, we have to understand that we have to be very sensitive towards them, and we have to find ways to actually include all the members of our academic community. Well, I've heard about situations, and I've seen some situations where you could have felt maybe discrimination in a sense, or some aspects of discrimination. That also touches upon this social dimension that we mentioned. We have to think about the people we have in the community. What kind of people do we have here? We have maybe some people from represented groups in our classrooms. Maybe we have people with special needs, people coming from foster homes. So I would say that probably the situation isn't perfect yet, not ideal. So we have to talk about these issues. And I feel my personal responsibility here to become an ambassador for the issue and to talk for the people, to represent the people who are not very often heard. I think that's probably the main reason why I care about this and why I emphasize this so much today. I'd like to use this opportunity and also add that in Vilnius University we have many different units and we have special services that can help. We have, say, psychologists that can help with counseling. And then I would like to say that the people who are afraid of speaking out should find the strength, find the courage to actually speak out. And then the rest, we should actually really pay enough attention, and then notice our course mates, ask how are they doing, listen to what they're saying. We have to be friendly among ourselves, because if we won't help each other, then, well, we don't really have a right to actually hope for the help of others when we need that. Let's move on to questions. Rėjus Martišius. Hello, Neda. In your opinion, what should be done to improve the emotional situation of the students after the quarantine? Many will face a very different learning environment once they go back to classrooms. How can we ensure that to do that smoothly after we've spent almost a full year at home? Well, I think there's no one correct answer here. The situation is very difficult and we haven't been here before. So we can't use an example from the past that could show us what's the best solution. So we have to look for creative ways to move forward, to share the good practices, look for the good examples, and include all of that into our communities. We also will have to look more closely at the process of integration. We have to ensure the inclusion of the members of the community, to understand everyone. Well, we just discussed that. And every person of the community will have to play their part. Students, the administration, the teaching staff, everyone. Now, what methods could be used? Well, first of all, we have to ensure psychological aid services and then academic counseling services. We have to ensure that we have the same what we have to now, and we have to expand it because the need will likely be greater. So these might be the main tools, but we don't have currently all the right answers. We don't have the magic key that would open all the doors and that would grant us the beautiful future immediately. Everyone will have to play their role. Thank you, Neda. I'll try to sum up two questions. Dominika and Paula asking these questions. I'll ask a bigger question. So, hello, Neda. In your speech, you discussed the empowering of autonomous students and the possibility to do more in the university than just to study. Can you discuss that more in detail? And maybe we can add another question, the individual study plans, because this is one of the areas that's very close to this. So individual plans and better situation, more capacity to actually have one. So let's say this is a one question of two parts. First of all, autonomous student, empowered student on one hand, that can a student that can do more than just study in the university, and then on the other hand, what are your ideas about creating individual study plans? Right. Okay. So let's start with the autonomous student. Well, I did mention that before, so I guess that's why the question is. And there are several ways to do that. Autonomous selection for your study path is a important tool, but we have to have more tools like that. And students should have more possibilities to choose the courses they want, to choose the courses that actually fit best their personal needs, personal expectations, personal goals, to include the courses that students would like to use later on in their professional development and their research. We have possibilities to do that. But I also do know that it's not very easy to get that. There is some inequality there. There are some difficulties in certain units. I was probably one of the first students that created the individual study plan for herself in Kaunas unit. And I know that it wasn't all that easy to carry out. But then I believe that the new examples, one by one, will open more doors. And I do believe that the next student in my unit and my program who would like to create an individual study plan to better fit his or her needs will find that easier. I included into my study grid additional courses that are not only in my unit. I included that from other units because I could do that now that we're studying remotely. And I think this is a good example that shows that there is a possibility of choice in the university. And the program plan that we get isn't something that cannot be adapted to our own needs. We have to keep that in mind. And I'm very happy with the possibilities. And if I have the chance, I will work to ensure that there are more possibilities to do that. Now, that's right. The time in the university is not only studies. There's also research. Students can do research. There are also other initiatives. This also includes what we have now in representation. This is another avenue where students can be included into the community, but there are also other clubs and projects and programs. And many students don't even know about all those programs, clubs, and projects that are currently active. So we have to talk about that, present that, maybe not only mention the name of the club, but also actually show the students what is done in the club. How can you join the club? And we also should encourage the students to create new clubs and projects, not only join the existing ones. We should welcome the ideas from the students. We should provide the students with the possibilities to. Well, we should provide the students with the possibilities of self-realization and self-achievement. That would also help them to feel members of the community. Right, two last questions. The first one is related to the current issues. Students might see that in their everyday life. So I will want a very quick and very specific answer from you. It is Marticius asking the question. Neda, what do you think? is.bu.lt system, should it be renewed, refurbished? Every semester, students run into problems as they try to select courses there. What is your position? What would be the VUSA position on this issue? A very topical and a very clear question. That's right, especially after selecting all the BUS courses. I know that there are plans to update the system. Of course, the student representation should keep that in mind and encourage to do that quickly. Great, thanks. What a quick answer. And the last question from the feed, Anastasia Lubinskite. Hello. We hear a lot that students are not participating in the elections for VUSA, for the student representation. We hear said that the students are not very active in the election, and only a minority is active in the elections. Do you see that as a problem? And if yes, maybe the procedures for the student representation should be changed, for the election of student representation should be changed, or maybe there should be other ways how to make the process more active and more inclusive.
Thank you, Anastasia, for your question. When we discuss the activeness, inclusiveness of students and the possibility to express their vote, we need to assess, first of all, our situation, Vilnius University situation in terms of other higher education schools, and also we can see what is happening at the national level, because at the national level, students don't participate and the youth don't participate in elections, general elections either. So this is a general trend. I know that because I participated in I Know Whom I Elect initiative, and the activity level was low. The current situation of VUSA doesn't limit students from becoming active participants in conferences, conventions, meetings. Each student can nominate himself or herself to become member. This inclusion is, of course, there is possibility to become part of the organization. But what thoughts I have about for example, from the initiative which I've mentioned, I know whom I elect. This initiative aims to encourage the youth, the students, to participate more in the democratic processes, meaning the election. What we do is we try to talk, to encourage the young people to participate, to participate in discussions, in various activities, educational activities, communicational activities. I believe as organization, we could improve the situation here, and we should do that. We should be more involved in making students more active in the election process. I think that currently the students do have ample opportunities to participate in the elections. Okay, as we have agreed to answer 5 questions, but there is one more question which is quite traditional. It's always out there when we discuss the strengthening of our organization. This question also comes up. You don't need to answer that question because this is already an additional question. It's up to you. You can choose whether to answer or not. Karina asks about the team, your team. Do you have someone in mind? Have you maybe selected members of your team or not? So you have the full right to answer or not. Thank you for the question. I hope that you're not tired yet, and I'm very happy to answer this question. I do have people who are determined to follow with me on this path. We have the same ideas, we have the same direction we want to follow, and I can share it. My team, the head of the bureau, Julia Jarutite, accepted. Study program representative Aleksinaite, academic process coordinator Simonas Danskas, administrator Angelika Jankauskaitė, IT coordinator. The current person responsible for this organization of this event is Justinas Kavaliūnas, marketing Rokas Toleikis, organizational area management coordinator Viktorija Milko, Aurelia Vasiliauskaitė, another member of my team, Kamilė Kandrotaitė, and the club and program coordinator, Gabija. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I did name my team, social process coordinator and representatives coordinator, PR coordinator. I haven't selected yet. I've held many discussions. I've had interviews, but I haven't elected them yet. But the ones I've mentioned, they did accept that they want to be part of the team and that they want to hold the position I named. Thank you, Neda. And for the very end, I would like to remind you that you are all invited to the annual convention, which is to take place this Saturday, starting at 10 in the morning. And we will hear annual activity report, revision report. Of course, we will select our new chairman or chairwoman. Then we will select a revision committee. Of course, then we will hear various speeches, celebration, congratulatory speeches, and so on. And as I have the floor, I will take this upcoming 2 minutes to say this. Thank you, Neda, for answering all this avalanche of questions. And I'm very happy that you managed to do it so well. And the end, I will improvise. Neda, elections happen, and let's say you're successfully selected as the chairwoman. of the representation. And you have the sole opportunity to meet one person in person and to chat with that person, any person you would like to meet if you're selected, and with that person with whom you would like to share the win. The first idea, do you mean just celebrate or anyone? I thought I probably would need to meet the rector of the university. But of course, if I had the chance, and what I want to do is to meet my team. That is the first thing I would like to do. Of course, remotely, we cannot meet face to face, but I would like to call my team and speak with them. Thank you once again, Neda. Thank you to the student representation for the opportunity to organize this interview, to have this very positive exchange of ideas. Thank you to the participants. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for showing interest in this. And I'm also thankful to staying with us longer than planned, because we did have so many questions. We wanted to have them answered. To conclude, let's meet on Saturday and united for the future of students. Thank you.